continuing in Dave Hunt's book, The Woman Rides the Beast. It says, whatever her true motives, history bears full witness to the fact that whenever she has been able to do so, the Roman Catholic Church has suppressed and openly condemned such basic human rights as freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and even freedom of conscience. And all of this sounds completely unbelievable to those who are not aware of it. But I will tell you, as I've mentioned other times on the program, that during my research into the Roman Catholic Church years ago, I happened to be watching the official Roman Catholic channel, the Eternal Word television network, EWTN, and it was during Pope Pope Benedict XVI, or rather Antichrist Benedict XVI's visit to the United States in 2008. And it was on the set of a program called World Over Live by Raymond Arroyo, and they were wall-to-wall coverage of the Pope's visit, obviously. And on the set with Raymond Arroyo was a bishop of the Roman Catholic Church, Robert John Newman. And he said, right before the EWTN cameras, now this broadcast goes all over the world by satellite television. He said this: no man has the right to choose his own religion. No man has the right to choose what he will believe. And I was just, it brought it all home to me. What I had been learning about the Roman Catholic Church, having heard it in my day through the mouth of a Roman Catholic bishop on the set of EWTN during the Pope's visit to this country, which I abhorred, came flooding in like a flood. No man has the right to choose his own religion. No man has the right to choose what he will believe. There's freedom of conscience for you. There is none, according to the Roman Catholic Church. And history dictates that whenever the Roman Catholic Church rises to sufficient power in any nation, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of conscience are a thing of the past. As a matter of fact, expressing freedom in any of these realms reduces you to heretical status, and it is then the prerogative of the Roman Catholic Church to use force to bring you into compliance with her laws, and resisting that force authorizes her to kill you. You think these are strong words? You simply are not aware of history. Copious history. Undeniable history. The most predominant character of history there is. Roman Catholic Church tyranny. Papal tyranny. The iron boot of the Antichrist of Rome. The woman riding the beast. Now, prior to the revolution, led by Benito Pablo Juarez in 1861, Roman Catholicism had dominated the lives of the Mexican people and controlled their government for 350 years. It was the state religion, and no other religion was allowed. As one author has stated after an exhaustive investigation of the records, quote, the oppression by Spain and the opposition by the Church of Rome were so intermeshed as to be indistinguishable by the people. In other words, Mexico was under Spanish domination. Spain, being the most Roman Catholic country in world history, had imposed upon the Mexicans Roman Catholic canon law, Roman Catholic tyranny, Roman Catholic priestcraft, until the people were reduced to abject slavery. They were impoverished. All the wealth was held in the hands of the papacy through his bishops and priests of Mexico and of the government. Union of church and state was absolute in Mexico until Benito Juarez. He says the Roman Catholic hierarchy supported the Spanish regime and excommunicated through its New World Inquisition anyone resisting the power of the state. The government, in turn, enforced Roman Catholic Church laws and, as the secular arm, functioned as the disciplinarian and even as executioner for the Roman Catholic Church. So there you have what results when you are under a government that is submissive to the Roman Catholic Church and responsible to the Roman Catholic Church. The people are reduced to rubble, to tyranny. No rights, no wealth, no power, no freedom, not even of conscience. This is what happens when church and state are united, when the Roman Catholic Church gains the ascendancy in your government. Inquisition results. The state and the church are now united and sacrosanct. Neither can be criticized without subjecting oneself to the Inquisition. You can't criticize the Pope, for he is God, and you can't criticize the state because the state is God's servant, the Pope's servant. Now you see freedom of speech being taken away from American citizens. Those who criticize the government are persecuted. And I can tell you from personal experience what it's like to criticize the United States government, especially when you expose the Roman Catholic Church's influence on our government on the free airwaves of amateur radio. Almost universal persecution. So much so that God's people who even understand this and would like to discuss it and would like to share the information with other people and to encourage them to do their own research, they are opposed to such a degree that they appear to be an extreme minority, and the threats leveled against us were criminal. That's what happened to me on amateur radio. And it was done with the full knowledge of the Federal Communications Commission and the Amateur Radio Relay League. Neither one lifted a finger to stop the jamming and the persecution and the threats against me and the participants of my discussions on amateur radio. We're beginning to see what it's like to live under a tyrannical government. Look, I listen to these same people on amateur radio every night, and they demand their First Amendment rights. But these same people who demand their First Amendment rights and tout the Constitution as being the basis of our form of government, and that it is uniquely American, that it is patriotic to defend the Constitution of the United States, every single one of them had their hands completely immersed in preventing my speech. And I say these same people who value the freedom of speech for themselves but deny it to me and others like me on amateur radio have simply surrendered their own rights. They've simply surrendered their own rights. And they're going to see the loss of their rights. One way or another, they're going to come to learn the error of maliciously interfering and trying to dissuade and persecute and threaten those who are trying to tell the truth to the American people on amateur radio. The United States is becoming a dictatorial, tyrannical, Roman Catholic government. Church and state are being united just as they were in Mexico. Church and state are both now sacrosanct. And if you resist either one, you criticize either one, you will be ostracized, persecuted, and eventually slain. That's history. It's repeating itself. Now, under the heading of consequences of a state religion, that is the unification of state, church and state in a country, it says, after Napoleon III's French army defeated Juarez and installed Maximilian as Emperor of Mexico, the latter saw that there could be no return to the old totalitarian ways. Pope Pius IX was outraged and wrote indignantly to Maximilian, demanding that, quote, the Catholic religion must, above all things, continue to be the glory and the mainstay of the Mexican nation, to the exclusion of every other dissenting worship, unquote. That, quote, instruction, that is, education, whether public or private, should be directed and watched over by the Roman Catholic ecclesiastical authority. In other words, by the Roman Catholic priests. No one could teach, either in the public schools or privately, any curriculum that wasn't dictated by the priests of Rome. And that the church must not be, quote, subject to the arbitrary rule of the civil government, unquote. In other words, the government is not separate from the church, but is united to the church and must do what the church says. It cannot arbitrarily rule the people under its own authority. That the government of Mexico got its authority from the Pope, and if it doesn't get its authority from the Pope, it doesn't have any authority. They're saying the same thing to our government, don't you know? Rome's always the same. We've got nearly 2,000 years of proof that this is the way she operates over the kings of the earth. You have authority. You are a de jure government so long as you're obedient to the papacy, as long as you are a servant to the papacy, as long as you uphold Roman Catholic canon law and uphold the temporal power of the Pope. The moment you step out from underneath the Pope's graces, you are no longer a government. You are a de facto government, and you may be removed at the earliest convenience. That's the ultimatum being given to the United States government. For history in the Bible is a liar. The woman does not ride the beast, according to Revelation chapter 17. There's a lot of people in this country interested in what's really going on in the country, trying to put the blame somewhere, trying to find out who these rich ruling elite are, when all of history leaves us no room for doubt who the rich ruling elite are, the priests of Rome. Why don't they consult their Bibles? Why don't these people that I listen to on amateur radio so intent on trying to find out who's really in control of our government, why will they never consult their Bibles? Why will they never consult history? Why are they seemingly satisfied to just lump everything in the lap of the quote-unquote rich ruling elite? You just as well blame it all on the moon. You just as well blame it all on the moon. For all the good it'll do you to just blame it on the nameless, faceless, quote-unquote rich ruling elite. The banksters. Who are the banksters? Blame it on the moon. But if you do like history dictates, as the Bible demands, blame it on the priesthood of the Roman Catholic Church, viola! Now all of a sudden history in the Bible makes sense. And so does the Protestant Reformation. And the ecumenical movement now becomes a pariah. It's not hard to know who these people are. The names, the faces of the people who are destroying our constitutional republic, our Protestant constitutional republic. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. Look, I'm nothing but an average, many people would say below average, Iowa plowboy. If I can do the math, certainly the average American can do the math. It says the poverty and instability that has plagued Latin America resulted from the union between church and state and the power over government which Rome, having enjoyed in Europe for centuries, there's your Middle Ages, brought to the New World in the name of Christ. Church and state, united. Same stuff, different millennium. Rome never changes her spots. He says the Roman clergy, now not the rich ruling elite, the Roman clergy were like little gods, lording it over the natives who became their servants. The revolutions in Latin American countries have been in large measure created by the contrast between the poverty of the people and the wealth of the Roman Catholic Church and the evil dictatorships that is the Roman Catholic Church, supported. Liberation theology was spawned in Latin America by radical Roman Catholic priests and nuns whose aroused consciences could no longer justify the oppression of the masses by both the Church, that is the Roman Catholic Church, and the state. Scores of other examples could be given, but must be deferred until later, says Dave Hunt. The point is that the roots of the unholy alliance between church and state, between the Roman Catholic Church and the governments of the world, which the Roman Catholic Church in dominance, go back to Babel. Babel was the model of what we see flourishing in the world today. Babel was the prototype. Everything is built after the Babylonian model. Nimrod founded the first world empire. Church and state were united. Such is the ideal empire which Roman Catholicism has always striven with all of its might to establish and maintain whenever possible. As the Catholic world stated at the time of Vatican Council I, quote, while the state has some rights, she has them only in virtue and by permission of the superior authority, the Roman Catholic Church, unquote. Still want to blame it on the moon? The antipathy of Roman Catholicism to basic human freedoms later created unholy alliances with the totalitarian governments of Hitler and Mussolini, who were praised by the Pope and other Roman Catholic Church leaders as men chosen by God. Catholics were forbidden to oppose Mussolini and were urged to support him. The Roman Catholic Church virtually put the fascist dictator in office. It would later install Hitler just a few years later. In exchange, Mussolini in 1929, yes, it was a union of church and state, it was an underhanded deal by Mussolini, listen to this. In exchange, Mussolini in 1929, having signed a concordat with the Vatican, made Roman Catholicism once again the official state religion, and any criticism of it was made a penal offense. You could go to jail to do penance in the penitentiary. The Inquisition. You say anything against the Roman Catholic Church and you go to the hole. Okay, Mussolini, a fascist dictator, reinstituted the Inquisition, reinstituted union of church and state, gave the Vatican a whole bunch of money and a concordat that guaranteed the Pope a temporal king in the world, reestablished his temporal power, which had been stripped of him by the Protestant Reformation. The liberty of all Europe resulted from the Protestant Reformation. Liberty even came to Roman Catholic countries who wanted to be free out from under the iron boot heel of the Pope. We just read all about it in the Footprints of the Jesuits by R.W. Thompson. But Mussolini, a fascist Roman Catholic dictator, reinstated the papacy, propped him right back up on his diabolical throne, as if he ascended out of the bottomless pit. Mussolini and Adolf Hitler were cut from the same Roman Catholic mold. The Roman Catholic Church was granted other favors, including a vast sum in cash and bonds. And because of insider trading, the Vatican is now a controlling corporate entity in this country. You can barely buy or sell anything in this country unless you're dealing ultimately with a Roman Catholic power. Our entire economic system is fashioned under the Vatican's model. Every product you see in the stores is stamped with a Vatican ID code. You can't buy or sell without bending the knee to the Antichrist of Rome. I hope this is beginning to soak in. Roots of a modern delusion. Satan's promise to Eve that she could become one of the gods became the foundation of pagan religion worldwide. To achieve that goal, man would have to assert himself and labor mightily. Thus was born the quote-unquote religion of self-effort. In fact, works instead of grace has always been and still is religion, of which Roman Catholicism is a prime example, and I will say no. She's the model after which all self-effort religions are placed. This rising Tower of Babel seemed to give credence to the grandiose delusion that man could reach heaven by his own efforts. Nimrod was very likely the first emperor to be deified, and thus was a forerunner of Antichrist. He was a prototype. The papacy is the modern-day archetype of that original prototype in Nimrod. I call him the modern-day Nimrod, and that is what he is. Mystery, Babylon the Great. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. Even a plowboy from Iowa can see it. I just wish other people would be more quickly to accept what cannot be denied. I'm going to conclude this morning's broadcast with a little change of subject. Jesus was born while the shepherds were still in the field in the fall, during our September and October, during the Feast of Tabernacles, the holy feast of God. Tomorrow is not his birthday. Christmas is pagan from beginning to end. Hook, line, and sinker pagan, rooted in the same mystery Babylon we've been speaking about, And I pray God give grace to God's people that they would research the origins of Christmas for themselves and join me in denouncing it for the paganism it is, the baptized paganism it is, and return to the true worship of Jesus Christ. Worship Him in spirit and in truth. We don't celebrate His birthday. We celebrate His death and His rebirth in heaven. And we're going to be like Him. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.